What do you do when they laugh behind your back? You flinch, you hesitate, and just like that, they win. Not because they're stronger, not because they're smarter, but because you gave them something they didn't deserve: your reaction. That's the currency of fear. It's not blood, it's not violence, it's attention. And the moment you give them yours, the game is already over. They don't need to strike you down. All they need is your surrender, handed over in the form of insecurity, in silence, in eye contact broken too soon, in the weak laugh that follows a cruel joke. That's when fear wraps its fingers around your spine. But here's what they never teach you. Fear doesn't exist on its own. It's planted, cultivated, weaponized. Machiavelli understood this. He didn't write about fear like a feeling. He wrote about it like a sword. Sharp, purposeful, cold. In the hands of the one who dares to wield it, it becomes control. And if you're not the one wielding it, you're the one wearing the collar. Every empire built, every ruler obeyed, every soldier marching to war, all of it powered by fear. Not always of pain, sometimes of shame, sometimes of exile, sometimes of being seen as small. You walk through your life hoping to be liked. They walk through theirs calculating how to be feared. That's the difference. That's why they rise. That's why you watch. It starts with silence. Not the silence of weakness, but the silence of calculation. A wolf doesn't bark when it hunts. It waits, it stalks. It watches you forget that it's even there. That kind of silence terrifies. Because when you don't explain yourself, they have to imagine what you're thinking. When you don't react, they have to guess whether you're planning to destroy them tomorrow or not at all. They will beg to know what you think. They will crumble trying to read your face. That's power. Because power doesn't shout. Power walks into a room, and everyone else goes quiet. So you want to be powerful. Good. But first, you need to understand something they'll never say out loud: the world is not fair. It's not even close. The world bows to perception, and perception can be shaped, bent, forged like steel in fire. You were taught to be good, to be kind, to be agreeable. And what has that earned you? A seat at the children's table while wolves dine under candlelight. They weren't burdened with the need to be liked. They were obsessed with the need to be respected. There is a difference. Fear commands respect, not the petty kind, not the fake flattery kind, the real kind. The kind that makes people second-guess crossing you. The kind that makes your enemies wonder if you're 3 moves ahead or just mad enough not to care. But fear must be precise, like a scalpel, not a hammer. The moment you become reckless, loud, desperate to prove something, you lose the edge. They see your hunger. They smell your insecurity. A true predator doesn't chase the herd. He waits until the herd panics and tramples itself. Machiavelli once wrote, "It's better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." What he meant was this: love is optional. Fear is insurance. Because when people fear you, they regulate themselves. They hesitate. They overthink. They shrink. And you expand. You fill the room, not with noise, but with weight. That weight comes from control, not just over others, over yourself, your words, your reactions, your weaknesses. When you master those, no one can hold power over you again. They can gossip, let them. They can mock, let them. They can throw stones. You will not flinch, you will not explain, you will not defend. Because when a king argues with a peasant, the crown falls to the dirt. Control is silence. Control is stillness. Control is knowing you could destroy them and choosing not to. That's what terrifies them the most. You think you need to prove your strength. You don't. The moment you try, you've already lost the game. The strong don't explain. They don't convince. They don't plead. They impose. With presence, with posture, with decisions made in stone. A lion does not declare it is king. It simply walks through the savannah, and the jungle knows. Fear isn't about raising your voice. It's about lowering it, slowing it, until every word drips with consequence, until silence feels like a countdown, until they lean in just to hear if their name is next. Understand this. Most people are desperate to be seen. They throw their insecurities into the world, hoping someone calls them powerful. You won't, because the moment you crave validation, you hand them the leash, and once they hold it, they will tighten it. Every single time. Let them underestimate you. Let them think you're soft. Let them whisper that you're weak. Then wait. Watch. Study. Strike only when the outcome is certain. This is how Caesar broke nations. How Napoleon made men kneel. They didn't chase victory. They engineered inevitability. It starts in the shadows, watching patterns, reading tells, noticing who flinches when questioned, who stutters when pressed, who blinks first in silence. Information is ammunition. Collect it. Catalog it. Store it in the cold corners of your mind until the moment is right. You don't need to attack them. Let them attack you when they feel safe, when they think you're asleep. Then show them who they provoked, without rage, without emotion, just precision. That's what fear respects. Not chaos, but coldness. You think vengeance is about violence. It's not. It's about clarity. Knowing exactly what wound to inflict so that it never heals. Not out of cruelty, out of necessity. Because if you let them get away with it once, they will make it a game. So you end the game. You become the consequence. They won't see it coming. That's the beauty of restraint, of patience. You don't reveal your power in noise. You reveal it in timing, in the pause before the storm, in the glance that makes a room shift uncomfortably. Power is not about how much you can show. It's about how much you can hold back. When you walk past them and say nothing, that silence is a mirror. They see themselves, their fears, their guilt, their cowardice. You didn't have to lift a finger. You just existed, and that was enough. This is what they fear most. The man who doesn't need to be seen. The one who doesn't perform. Because if he's not here for attention, what is he here for? Control. And control is never loud. Control is the way you breathe when you're surrounded. The way you wait while they panic. The way your hands never shake, even when the room burns around you. They fear that, because they've never mastered themselves. They lash out. They beg to be understood. They threaten. You don't. You look through them, as if they're not even worthy of the war they're trying to start. You have to understand, fear doesn't come from what people know about you. It comes from what they can't. The less they know, the more they guess. And the more they guess, the more power you hold. Uncertainty is a weapon. Doubt is a fog. You are the shadow in it. Unseen, unpredictable, unforgettable. And if you ever have to strike, you do so without warning. No announcement, no build-up. Just damage. Clean. Quiet. Devastating. Then disappear again. That's how legends are built. Not by being everywhere, but by being the ghost that haunts one single memory. They will talk about it. They'll replay it in their minds. Again and again. Wondering how they didn't see it coming. And they won't ever make that mistake again. Not with you. Because now, they know. You weren't born to blend in. You weren't built for softness, for surrender, for begging to be included. You were made to command, to shape the world around you with the force of your will or break it in half if it refuses to bend. But somewhere along the way, they dulled your edge. They taught you to smile when insulted, to laugh when disrespected, to nod when dismissed, and every time you did, you handed over another piece of yourself. No more. You don't ask for space. You take it. You don't wait for an invitation. You walk in like you already belong. That's the mindset of a ruler, of a strategist, of a force. Machiavelli never promised kindness would win you power. He promised the opposite. If you want obedience, you instill fear. If you want loyalty, you offer silence and calculation, not affection, not trust. Because trust can be broken. Fear stays. And people will try to call it cruel. Let them. They're terrified of anyone who's mastered what they themselves suppress. They hate in you what they can't control in themselves. Remember this. The one who is feared is not always hated, but the one who is loved is always vulnerable, because love is a transaction. It must be fed, maintained, performed. But fear requires no maintenance. Once installed, it lives in their gut. It follows them home. It burns through their pride. You don't scream to be heard. You build a reputation that speaks in your absence. When your name is mentioned, they should lower their voice. Because you didn't just play the game. You rewrote the rules, quietly, without needing applause. That's how the truly dangerous move beneath the noise, behind the curtain, above the judgment of the weak. And when they ask how you did it, you offer nothing. No blueprint, no confession. You leave them wondering. Let them stay confused. The moment you explain your power, you cheapen it. Let them fear the mystery more than the man. They'll try to provoke you. That's how the weak test the strong. They poke, they prod, they whisper in corners, hoping you'll explode. Because if you lose control even for a second, they get to call it a win. Don't give them that gift. Never let the enemy set the tempo. Never dance to their rhythm. When they mock, you remain still. When they shout, you stay quiet. Not because you're afraid, but because your silence is sharper than their insults. This is war. Psychological, tactical, ruthless. And every reaction they can predict is a move you've already lost. So hold your fire. Let them think you didn't notice. Let them grow bold. That's when they get sloppy. That's when they expose themselves. And when they do, you strike with clarity, not rage, with precision, not noise. Understand this. Power doesn't flinch. Power waits. And waiting, that's your greatest weapon. Most people are addicted to impulse. They need to respond. They need to feel in control. But you are control. Your restraint is terrifying because it means you're thinking, calculating, watching. They can't track a mind that doesn't leak emotion. They can't defend against a threat that moves without pattern. This is how wolves dominate a pack, not through constant aggression, through presence, through timing, through the unshakable confidence of a creature that knows it cannot be touched. People will start to change around you. They'll speak differently. Watch their words. Walk softer, because once you shift, everything around you bends with it. That's the law of gravity. That's psychological dominance. You don't need to announce your transformation. It speaks for itself in how they treat you. The hesitation in their voices, the extra space they give you, the silence after your sentences. You've become something they fear not because you're cruel, but because you've made peace with what you're capable of. There's a moment, it always comes, when they realize they can't move you. They try charm. You're unmoved. They try threats. You're still. They try shame. guilt, exclusion, but nothing works. Because you've reached the place beyond reach, the place where power lives. Cold, clear, untouchable. You are no longer reacting to their world. You are bending it. That's when the fear sets in. Not the loud kind, not panic. The quiet dread of knowing they have no influence here, that their words fall flat, their tactics bounce off. Their power means nothing, because you don't need their approval. You don't need their love. You don't even need their recognition. You've become your own center of gravity. This is what separates the rulers from the ruled, the predator from the prey, the architects from the pawns. The pawn needs validation. The architect builds in silence. You speak only when it serves a purpose. You reveal only what is necessary. And when you act with finality. Machiavelli understood that appearances matter more than reality. So you master both, the external illusion and the internal truth. You are composed on the surface, ruthless underneath. Your emotions no longer control you. Your past no longer weakens you. Every scar has become armor. Every betrayal, a lesson. They tried to make you doubt, but now your doubt has turned to discipline. They tried to make you angry, but now your anger has turned to aim. You see 10 moves ahead, not because you're smarter, but because you've stopped chasing. You've started watching. And now, they're the ones on the board. They scramble, they scheme, they grasp for control they once had over you. But the door has closed. You've become the storm they never saw coming. There's no going back now. Once you taste that kind of control, not over others, but over yourself, nothing else satisfies. Not applause, not praise, not comfort. You've entered the domain of the few, the realm of those who command without begging, who lead without noise, who destroy without chaos. This is where power becomes pure. You don't engage in petty wars. You let others tear themselves apart, trying to get your attention. And while they spiral, you rise steady, deliberate, unseen. They talk. You act. They gossip. You vanish. They try to provoke you into slipping, but your silence becomes a mirror so brutal, they can't look too long without crumbling. Because when a man stops reacting, he becomes unpredictable. And when he's unpredictable, he's dangerous. Dangerous not because he's violent, but because he's disciplined. Your discipline is now your weapon. It protects you from traps. It shields you from betrayal. It frees you from the addiction to being liked. And make no mistake, that's what most people are. Addicted to approval, obsessed with perception, desperate to avoid judgment. But you've made judgment irrelevant. They cannot shame you if you've already embraced the dark corners of your own mind. They cannot exile you if you've already learned to walk alone. And once you're free of that, you become terrifying. Not because you want to be feared, but because you no longer fear being feared. That's the difference between power and performance. One is rooted, the other is borrowed. Yours is rooted. They'll come to you differently now, more carefully. They'll study your face, hoping for a flicker of weakness. You'll give them none, because you've become the one thing they never prepared for the man who needs nothing. Not praise, not permission, not forgiveness. And that is the beginning of true dominance. You've built something they can't touch. Not a persona, not a performance, but an essence, a presence. You walk in and the air changes. Not because you say anything, but because they don't know what you're thinking. That mystery burns hotter than any insult. It unravels them. Because deep down, people crave control over situations, over outcomes, over each other. But you've taken that control away. You've trained your face to reveal nothing, your tone to cut clean, your movements to speak less but say more. You no longer react to what they do. You act according to what you decide. Every word is chosen. Every silence is deliberate. And now they hesitate. Even the loud ones, the manipulators, the performers, the charmers, they feel it. That weight you carry without effort, the quiet presence of someone who is no longer playing their game. You've rewritten the dynamic. You no longer reach out. You observe. You no longer seek attention. You attract it by not needing it. Because that's what power does. It pulls, like gravity, without noise, without effort, without compromise. And it all comes down to one truth. You've stopped being afraid of being alone. That's the final kill switch in the system, the thing they don't want you to discover. That solitude is not weakness, it is preparation, it is strategy, it is purification. The kings who stood alone were not the most hated, they were the most remembered. Because when the dust settled, and the noise died, and the crowds faded, they remained. Still, clear, unbroken. Just like you. And those who once mocked your silence will one day mimic your presence. Because fear doesn't spread through volume, it spreads through energy. Stillness, precision, the slow, steady knowing that you could burn everything down, but choose not to. They won't fear what you said. They'll fear what you might do.